Let's stand, please, for the national anthem. All right, thank you. You may be seated. You should have said except for the major. There's still some people making their way over. Aaron, thank you again. Appreciate you. Some folk are making their way over, but the best thing to get them here is to start. And that is what we'll do. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. We welcome all of you, residents and servants of DeKalb County. We thank you for coming out today. This is our I think it's our fifth year or fifth Cop Talk. I know one year we had two. So I may have lost track. But we are glad that you're here. Sergeant Parks, you've been to every one, right? Is it Parks or Parker? Parker. Okay. You've been to every one. So tell us what happened on the third one. Did you see his face just go blank? Let's see. Gaddis, you've been to, did you miss one? Okay. Who's been to, among the uniform, who's been to every one? No, you missed one, Amima? You've been to three. You've been to another one. Okay, Sergeant Parker, you're the man. Okay, so you can tell them all how it goes, huh? I think TP might have been, except he's missing this one because he's really enjoying that fellowship hall right now. How many in the congregation have been to all of our Cop Talks? Okay, Hilbert, all right. The Clarks, all right. Who else? Darrell, you missed one? You think you were here, but you didn't want to raise your hand? Oh, okay. So you were near some of them. All right, good deal. Well, we're here, and that's what matters. Forget who's not here. We're here. Major Craig Medlin, newest chief commander, not chief, station commander. You district commander? Precinct commander. We don't do stations. Newest precinct commander here in Tucker. But if I call you chief, you know that means there's something coming, right? Okay. We're glad you're here, and pass the word on to Chief Padrick. See, it doesn't come out when I say Chief. If I said Major Padrick, it would have flowed. But pass the word on to Chief Padrick. We appreciate him making these things happen. Captain Pop, good to see you again this year, and the others that came. Just give us a word, and we'll get going.
Sounds good. Good afternoon, everybody. Again, thank you for having us here, Pastor Henri. I appreciate the dinner. That was really nice of you to put on for us. Everybody's feeling really welcome. I've got plenty. Thank you. Just before I get started, let me introduce a couple people. Captain Pop here is my precinct commander assistant. We have Lieutenant Stanfield to his right. He's over our criminal investigation division. I have Sergeant Tyner up front here. Should be speaking here shortly. Sergeant Parker, Sergeant Walker, and if you'll introduce the gentleman behind you there on the 15 for everybody, I'd appreciate it.
Good afternoon. Sergeant Parker, I'm over the Tucker 15, which is known as the Field Investigative Team. And I just want to say I work with a group of great officers. I'll start with Officer Adams right here in the front, Officer Krigo, Officer Gaddis, there's Officer Terrell Perica, who's still in the back, and Officer West is not here. He's vacationing in Jamaica, so I'm jealous. My team, number one, we do proactive things daily, weekly, monthly. We were here about a year ago. Just to give you an example, Gwinnett County police officer was killed. We got alerts on the phone about that. We immediately went to the Gwinnett County, met with their officers, investigators, which led us to Stonecrest Mall. We ended up taking one of the suspects that was in the vehicle into custody. So we just kind of always available to respond to certain situations. That was right. That was during the cop talk last year here. Once we got those alerts, we got together and we decided to leave a little bit early to do that. Officer Terrell Perica is walking in right now. He actually made contact with that suspect right outside the movie theater, Stonecrest Mall, and took him into custody. This was a team effort, but my guys work a lot with U.S. Marshals, Fugitive Unit, with the Sheriff's Department, Special Victims Unit. So they do a lot of good work with getting narcotics, armed robbery suspect, murder suspects off the street. So I work with a really good team. I really appreciate all of them, and they make everybody, including the precinct commander, look good.
Thank you. And before I forget, in the back we have our special operations SWAT officers. They actually brought the Bearcat out today for the children and everybody to look at. So I appreciate you coming out and supporting us. And secondly, thanks to Donna Mann, our public education specialist, and the Pastor Andre for putting this together for us today. They worked pretty hard putting this together, so much appreciated, including Mr. Mars. So thank you very much. I appreciate you. So moving on, I'm going to introduce Sergeant Walker. He's with our Homeland Security Division. He's going to talk to you today about some domestic terrorism, if we can get started.
Yes, we can. All right. Thank you, sir.
So you want us to sit up there?
You can stand up there if you want.
Oh, okay. I can stand right here. I'm fine.
I'm just figuring
No, thank you. Thank you. I'm not causing any problems, but you know. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sergeant J.K. Walker with the DeKalb County Police Department. A lot of people don't know that actually the DeKalb County Police Department after 9/11 were one of the first departments within the Southeast region to establish a Homeland Security unit. And so it is my task on a daily basis to what we do on a daily basis with DeKalb is that we go and investigate anything that may be deemed terrorist related. We had an incident this past week. There was a suspicious package at our Social Security office on Covington. So we go and we investigate those kind of things. We also investigate any incidents that may be against our elected officials. So whether it may be our sheriff, whether it may be our county commissioners, believe it or not, Congressman Hank Johnson actually lives in DeKalb County. So if there's anything that involves him, we actually get involved with investigating those incidents. With that being said, where we come into play is simply when there are matters that people may deem that fall in regards to any terrorist-related incidents. And so I want to kind of clarify that because it may be, well, how do we know it may be terrorist-related or how it may be know this or that? What I always like to talk to people about is that if you ever come across any suspicious activity, and when we talk about suspicious activity is not just based on how a person may look, okay? And I have to be very clear on that. It is not based on how a person may look. Suspicious activity is based on their behavior and what he or she is doing, okay? What is outside of the norm. And the reason why I say that is because, especially for you at your place of worship here, sometimes You may know what's outside of the norm when someone may show up, i.e., like a guest. Everybody, so somebody may know when a guest has shown up because it's outside of the norm. So what we're looking at is what are things that are outside of the norm, whether it be in your neighborhood, whether it be at your place of business, whether it be at your place of worship, or whether it may be even when you're out and about in the general public, when you stopped at a gas station, when you stopped at a restaurant, when you stopped at a movie theater. What are things that causes you to have an alarm or causes you to say, hey, you know what, that is suspicious behavior? The very first thing that you can do in regards to that is contacting 911 and letting them know exactly what the suspicious behavior is. Now, there are a couple of things that I always say that is very beneficial before you call 911. It's very beneficial if you have a couple of factors. Number one, believe it or not, and you all may laugh when I say this, but believe it or not, people don't know this sometimes when they call 911. Your location. Where are you? Where exactly are you? And I know we may laugh and say, you know, I know where I am. But believe it or not, a lot of people get so caught up in calling 911 that when they say, where's your location, they stop and pause and say, well, you know what? Give me a minute. Okay? Give me a minute. If you do not know the physical address of where you are, look for major landmarks. Look for major landmarks. That greatly helps. If you know you have major landmarks near you, if you know that you're near a main artery, what we call a street artery, give that to the 911 operator. Those are things that greatly assist and help us, okay? Secondly, what is it that you are observing? What is it that you are observing at that moment? And what is it that person doing? And give as much detail and description to that 911 operator that you possibly can. One of the things that greatly helps us in the law enforcement entity is when you give physical descriptions in regards to what he or she may be wearing. If you happen to observe a vehicle, okay, what color is the vehicle? Are you able to observe anything as far as the tag on the vehicle? That greatly helps us when it comes to investigations. There, 2 years ago here, just not in the state of Georgia, but there is an app out now, believe it or not, that helps in regards to these efforts. And it's an app called See Something, Send Something. See Something, Send Something. It's an app right now that whether you have an iPhone or whether you have, you know, an Android, you can download that app on your phone. Now listen to me. That app is not for 911 purposes. That app for is should you see suspicious activity occurring, and say, for instance, you're not in DeKalb. You know after today, you know that you have some friends and people that you can call in DeKalb with the DeKalb County Police Department. But say, for instance, you may be in Fulton County. You may be somewhere, you know, in Cherokee or whatever. The See Something, Send Something app simply is, if you observe suspicious activity, you are now able to take a picture of what you observe and send it in. Now, where is it going? It is actually going to the GBI office. The GBI has a fusion center where that information is going into. And once the GBI receive that information, what they do is they find out where is this occurring? Where's the suspicious activity occurring? And then they reach out to the local law enforcement agency and pass that information on to them. So that simply is something that you can download on your phone, and you can now relay information in regards to should you see something and send something. And the reason why I'm passing that information on to you is because, believe it or not, what is talked about a lot, of course, in the news are events that take place, right? But what is not talked a lot about are the events that have been prevented. And believe it or not, there have been a lot of events prevented simply because citizens have seen something and they've contacted the local authorities to call it in. And the authorities have gotten there and found out that, hey, we have just prevented something majorly from happening. Those are some of the greatest resources that you all have in regards to being able to partake in preventing some of these events from even occurring. Are we open up for questions or things like that? So at this time, I guess the greatest thing that I can do right now is, are there any questions that anyone may have of me in regards to the topic that we're talking about? Yes, sir. Yes, it is anonymous. Say, for instance, if you don't want them to know exactly who may have reported the information, it's a block on there where you can let them know, like, hey, I'm just reporting this. I don't want anybody to contact me back or whatever. I just want to submit this information. And you bring up a great question also, because say for instance, even if you're calling if you're calling us, okay? If you call 911 and you think that there's suspicious activity going, you can let that operator know, like, hey, I'm just reporting this. I just really don't maybe want anybody to contact me back, all right? So that's a great question. Now, if you're reporting it and there's further information that you want to report, okay, once the officer gets there to do a report or whatever, just let the officer know, like, hey, I just want to report this. I really don't want to kind of go too much further. But I will tell you this, though. If it's of great information, okay, if it's of great information, the investigative end may reach out to you via phone, okay? And we are cognizant of that these days, that sometimes, people kind of don't want, if they're reporting something, they kind of really don't want maybe that police car showing up at their house, right? So some other things that you can do if it's vital information is just say, hey, maybe if I can meet you somewhere, right? I want to give this information, but maybe if I can meet you around the corner at the Quick Trip, I can meet the officer at the Quick Trip to provide this information. Then therefore, that police car may not be pulling up at your home, but at the same time, that may be information that you may need to provide, right? Yes, sir. GBI, Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Georgia Bureau of Investigation. So Georgia Bureau of Investigation, that is a statewide investigative agency. If who's a real police officer, ma'am? On the see something, send something, that is specifically controlled by the GBI. Yes, ma'am. That's not going to anybody fake. Yes, ma'am.
I mean, you see someone come and you're so happy for them to come and be amongst you. I mean, what is it do you look for to say, oh, this person doesn't look right?
So her question is that what is it is particularly in a church setting in regards to a person who may be displaying the behavior that we're talking about here today. That kind of person simply would be, say for instance, if someone walks in and they're not asking maybe questions that a normal visitor would ask, right? If an usher, do you all have ushers at the door? So if an usher is welcoming him or her in, and that person comes in and all of a sudden they're just standing just looking around, they have what we call like the 1,000-yard stare. They're not paying attention maybe to anything that the usher is saying, or they just completely just disregard the usher, proceed in and decide that they're going to take it upon themselves to sit somewhere. That kind of behavior. And one of the things that I would have to also mention when we talk about behavior is something that we all possibly have. I know in law enforcement we've seen the increase, but now the general public is starting to see an increase in regards to mental illness, right? And so that's something else to be cognizant of and aware of, is that if you have a person who's not listening to you, they don't seem to be there in regards to questions that you may be asking them, right? That's where it comes to that guideline of, okay, so we may need to take this to the next level of, I need to alert someone that we have someone here that is probably not paying attention to what I'm asking him or her. Does that kind of answer your question? And the thing is, believe it or not, based on a lot of circumstances that with major incidents, a lot of people have said, believe it or not, that something just was not right about what that person was doing. Something was not just right. I like to equate it mostly to parents. To parents. When our kids of the toddler age, right? And say for instance, you may step outside the room and all of a sudden you don't hear anything going on, right? You kind of know like something is going on, and then you reach out and ask, what are you doing? And then and if they definitely say nothing, you know something is going on, right? right? It's those very instincts that we have as human nature. And the reason why I say that is because, believe it or not, sometimes society forces us to suppress those bells that are going off. Like, oh, that's nothing. Leave that alone. You don't need to call the police. You don't need to do that. No, you need to. You need to. Because those very bells and whistles that are going off internally are definitely telling us that something is not right. Okay? I think I saw a hand over here, and then I know she's. Start your question over.
What is being done on a preventive measure to track down these organizations that are the root cause some of these domestic terrorist acts? So we know that there's an increase of white nationalism, white supremacy. The FBI and other agencies that are pushing these they're recruiting young boys to do this. Are you tracking them online? Are you tracking these organizations and seeing what the activities are to prevent these acts of terrorism?
Okay, so first and foremost, this is the right of everyone in the United States. We, as a law enforcement agency, cannot track a person. Okay?
I'm not speaking of a person in particular.
I understand.
Organization.
Let me finish explaining.
Okay.
We cannot track a person. Normally, the way things happen is that someone will bring their behavior and their attention to law enforcement. Once they bring that behavior and attention to law enforcement, then we can start investigating to see what he or she may be doing. Okay? So once we see that it's crossing into the criminal side, then that's when things start getting involved, where investigations can happen and then possibly arrests can be taking place. Okay? But and I understand your question, sir, but what I want you to understand is that if you right now go and you simply say something online, okay, that does not automatically mean that we do not have the right to start tracking you. We can't do that. We can't do that. Now, a citizen can report that to law enforcement and says, this person has said X, Y, Z. Okay? This person has said X, Y, Z. They can bring it to our attention. But you know the First Amendment?
I understand the First Amendment.
When it comes to the First Amendment, sir, you can say something online such as, you may say, I don't like the president. Right? Okay?
But if I say I want to do something to the president, then that's going to automatically draw attention.
It will be brought to the attention of the agency, and then the agency will begin to start looking into things, and then it's up to them in regards to whether or not they will reach out to you.
Okay, so if someone says online, I want to go kill these people, they don't belong here, okay, does not give probable cause, Fourth Amendment, for me to
That's a little bit different. That's a little bit different. Because when they start going into threats, that's a little bit different to where then that will bring the attention of the locals and possibly state and federal agencies to the attention, and then they will start looking into that person and their actions, and that will probably warrant an investigation.
Okay.
The biggest, I understand your concern, okay? And so the biggest thing that I can tell you is that there are more citizens than us.
I understand that.
Right? There are more citizens than us at the end of the day.
I understand.
And so in order for us to be able to combat this terrorism, it's going to take all of us. And it's going to take when citizens see things to bring it to the attention of law enforcement.
So there's no tracking of these hate organizations or these national organizations who are promoting white nationalism and white supremacy, who would carry out these acts. There's no tracking. I can go online and look up some of these organizations and see what they're doing and see what they're promoting. So I know if I can do it, you as a law enforcement agency should be able to do the same thing. What are they doing? What are their activities?
That's where I'm trying to correct you. That's where you were mistaken, sir.
Okay.
We cannot just go out there and just start tracking if there has not been the line of that crime being committed. Just like the example you gave me earlier, there was a threat that was made. Okay, so now we're talking about a different level.
Okay.
Okay, but as far as tracking, we cannot do that. We cannot sit there and track a person and start doing this or doing that. I think
You have civilian agencies who attract people like the NAACP, SCLC. They will monitor things like that. They will monitor behavior like that and then report it to agencies like he's speaking about. And the FBI is currently monitoring agencies like that. Domestic terrorism is something that is high on the FBI, on the federal radar and things like that. So, but the bigger thing that he's trying to say is we need the communication from the people. Like he said, there's more citizens than there are law enforcement, and there are rules to certain things. It's called due process. It's something that we all want. And so what happens is it makes the wheels of justice move slow. So common sense would tell us, yes, these people are doing certain things and you should be able to track them, but then the law comes in. And people like myself, I work for the district attorney's office. How you doing? Jawar Mars. I'm going to speak a little bit later, but just wanted to clear it up just a little bit. So you can go to people like the NAACP and other civilian watch agencies. They will be able, they're already doing it. They're already monitoring Facebook sites, other things like that, and reporting it to people like the FBI and things like that. What you need to do is go to like your local legislators, your senators and things like that, and make sure that they are sending it up the chain. Because like he's saying, as a local agency, they couldn't just start going and tracking citizens. We can't do that. We don't want to live in a place like that. Well, the organizations are made up of citizens. So it's kind of the same thing. It's nuanced, like he said, but he said he understands your broader concerns. We all feel the same way. At the end of the day, when we take off these clothes, we're still citizens. We're still human beings. We all have a personal life as well, and we don't like to be intruded upon as well. But there are rules to this, so I'm gonna let him get back to it.
I will say this real quickly also before I take your question, ma'am. Also, sir, to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, believe it or not, it is citizens who now are having an outcry to a lot of these social media apps. The reason why they're changing face now. And case in point, Facebook. About 2 years ago, I know personally myself, Facebook now, they have a monitoring. They are monitoring what's being posted on Facebook. They are now starting to reach out to local agencies when they see things that are being posted on Facebook that are questionable. Or they are going about shutting their page down. But again, that pressure is coming from you all, from citizens, not from, because we try to ask them that and they don't do anything. But when the pressure starts coming from citizens, then they start changing face.
You can also report comments and flag comments and things like that as well.
Did everybody hear what he said? So you can also flag and report comments as well. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is a general question. We have to acknowledge the fact that there's a lot of mistrust in the community when it comes to law enforcement. It just is, right? Right, wrong, whatever. Let's just put that on the table. So when you're stopped, let's say late at night, and you're concerned about your safety, and you believe a police car is trying to stop you for whatever infraction or whatever the situation is, or if someone comes to your door, what can the normal citizen, homeowner, resident, or driver do to make sure that the person who they're engaging is really law enforcement? I'll take my seat.
So based on her question, the very first thing that you can do for a traffic stop is it's suggested that you can slow down, okay? You can turn your flashers on. You can wait till you get to a well-lit place, and what you can also do is get on the phone with 911. Call 911 and let them know that you have someone who's behind you, who has blue lights on. You're waiting till you get to a well-lit place until you stop, until you feel comfortable, okay? And especially if it's in the cab, by you relaying that information is going to get back to that officer that is then performing that traffic stop. Because not only I can understand the mistrust, but you also have people who are out there trying to impersonate us in the same token. Okay, so our greatest concern are the people who are trying to impersonate us. So again, we do understand that safety factor, and especially if you're on not a well-lit road, okay? So again, put your flashers on, slow down to a traveling speed, okay? A little bit below the speed limit. Get on the phone, call 911, let them know that, hey, you have someone who is behind you who's trying to perform a traffic stop, and that you're just trying to drive to a well-lit area to where you can stop. Now, if it's your place of residence, okay, it's the same thing. You call 911 and say, hey, you have police at your door, or you have people at your door who are claiming to be police. Okay? No, ma'am. You don't have to open the door. You call 911, let them know you have someone at your door who's claiming to be police, and let them know that you just want to make sure it's police before you open the door. Because again, there have been incidents where people have impersonated police to force entry into a home.
Is it possible?
Okay, I was told this is the.
All right, so in regards to domestic terrorism, is it recommended to carry your weapon even at church, or because at this point you don't know, you could be at the movies or whatever, and is it recommended? Is it safe?
Okay, so to answer your question, there are three things I always talk about when it comes to carrying a weapon. And I'm not trying to be funny. First and foremost, not everybody needs to carry a weapon. Okay, there are some people who, when these incidents happen, they go and get a weapon, and they're the last one to need to go get a weapon. Okay, simply because there are three things I always suggest that you need to do should you decide to exercise your right to carry. Number one, you need to educate yourself on the laws. Okay, you need to educate yourself on the Georgia laws, because if you're not educating yourself on the Georgia laws, then you almost are contributing to violating the law yourself. Okay? Number two, you need to train. And you need to find somebody who is qualified to train. Don't just check Instagram. Don't just check Facebook. Okay? Don't just check the internet. No, do your research first, and before you go find somebody who is going to train you, throw some questions out there at them based on what you have researched, such as, like how long maybe have you been doing this thing? Okay? Did you just get your license like last night? Okay? What is your background and your qualifications? Okay? Those are the kind of things, seriously, that you want to know. All right? Number three, be mindful that by you carrying a weapon, and when you present a weapon in a situation, you are now going to change the dynamics of that situation. And what I mean by that is now all attention is now going to be on you. Okay? If you have not prepared yourself mentally and physically for what you should do if you end up pulling out a weapon and end up challenging someone, there have been many instances where individuals have had their weapon taken from them and used against them. Okay? Also, be aware that just because you pull out a weapon, don't think that everything is going to stop. Okay? Also, if you pull out your weapon and we arrive, you need to make sure that you obey our commands, because we don't know who the good guy or the bad guy is in that situation. All right? And then lastly, I always talk about, there's this incident, and it talks about the awareness of should you choose to carry a weapon. A couple years ago, there was an incident that took place in Las Vegas where, unfortunately, 2 officer lives were taken when this couple entered a pizza restaurant and took the lives of the 2 officers that were sitting there eating pizza. They left the Pizza Hut, went across the street to the Walmart. When they went into the Walmart, they split up. The male, when he entered the Walmart, said a revolution is coming, and shot into the ceiling of the Walmart. An armed citizen saw what was happening and decided to get involved. So the armed citizen starts tracking the male in the Walmart. What the armed citizen did not know was the female. The armed citizen goes to encounter the male and did not see the female come up behind him and shot and killed him. Okay? So look, I'm saying all that to not scare you all from exercising your right. But people, obtaining a gun is not just like going out here and just getting something that's very simple. I understand your question of you want the right to protect yourself, and you have that right, right? But in the right to protect yourself, I am a person who says it's best you use this first, then you go out here and try to put tools in this, because if you have not trained this first, I don't care what you put in this, it ain't gonna matter a hill of beans. Practice self-awareness first. Practice knowing what's going on around you at all times. Practice knowing and trying to figure out where your exits are. Because a lot of time in these incidents, they are telltale signs that something is about to take place. But if we're not paying attention, you're going to miss the telltale signs, right? Did that answer your question, ma'am? All right, I don't want to take up too much more time. I appreciate you all's time.
Again, I'm Jawar Mars. I'm a senior ADA in the Crime Strategies and Community Partnerships Unit, DeKalb County District Attorney's Office. Your DA, the elected DA, is Ms. Sherry Boston.
What's an ADA?
ADA is an assistant district attorney. If you see on the screen, has something called Criminal Justice 101. I'll be speaking to you all a little bit later. But coming up right now, we have Sergeant Tyner from the DKPD. She has some experience in Special Victims Unit, 911. Communications, and I'm sorry, can you tell me your name one more time? Tawan. Gave a great sermon early today, and I think the spirit of what he talked about was building bridges and keeping bridges or restoring bridges. And a part of what we're doing here today, a part of what Pastor Honoree and Chief Pedrick now, Captain Pop, Major Medlin, what they're trying to continue is continuing to foster the communication, because as the young lady said, there is mistrust, there is distrust in the community. But I think the heart of any healthy relationship is communication, healthy communication. And so after these incidents happen and things like that, we must have forums like this where cooler heads can prevail. We can talk through things, because we all need to talk through things. Everybody has a perspective. And I think if we all can offer our perspective, if we can educate you on our perspective, you can educate us on your perspective, then we can reestablish those bridges of communication that help us to foster that trust between one another, because we're all a part of the community. Every last one of us, the citizens, law enforcement, criminal justice system, we have to do the hard work. Pastor Honoree and Chief Pedrick started to do the hard work, and we're continuing on. Like I said, this is the 5th time that we're doing this forum. We'd like, that you encourage people to come out, and you let them know word of mouth is the, best way to communicate, and let people know that, hey, when you come here, your voice is heard, your displeasures, your gripes, your likes, your dislike, everything. You can be a complete person, speak to your law enforcement, your local law enforcement. They're willing to engage with you, hear what you have to say, but also sometimes push back, let you know that, hey, some things you are misinformed about, because there are people out here misinforming the public because they want to keep us apart. So I'm talking a lot right now. This is Sergeant Tyner. She's going to do her presentation, and I'll come back up. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Sergeant Tyner. And as he stated, I have been 911, CID, meaning Special Victims, domestic violence, internet crimes against children, and then I just recently came to Tucker Precinct about almost 6 months ago as a sergeant. So I'm here to kind of cover the basis from the beginning from 911 to the police to the detective division, and then once I'm done, Mr. Mars will be back up. Basically, your first point of contact for the police, if you need assistance, is 911. I'm pretty sure everybody knows 911. You're taught it in school. You teach your children about 911, but the very first thing they ask you when they come on and they say, this is DeKalb County Police, what's the address of your emergency? And to piggyback off of what Sergeant Walker said, that's the most important thing. If you don't have the actual physical address, two intersecting streets, some major landmarks, even if you have one street and can give a landmark, if there's someone else around, if you can ask them, where are you? Can you give me an actual address? That's the actual most important thing. And because we have such a diverse community, there are a lot of languages and cultures and nationalities that we have that we deal with on a daily basis. We do have telelanguage, which is basically a language line. If you're not very fluent in English or you feel more comfortable speaking your native language, then when they ask you that question, if you can give them the address in English so they can go ahead and get that in, that's perfect. If not, just say your language. Just say, I speak whatever language it is. They'll patch in an operator, someone that speaks your language, and they can actually translate that for you. So don't be hesitant if you don't speak good English, or if something is going on and you need some assistance. Most important thing is to call. Secondly, speak clearly. Try to stay as calm as you can. If there's someone else in the home, if you're too upset and there's someone else that's there that's a little bit calmer and that can get the information across a little bit better than you feel that you can at that time, don't be afraid to put them on the phone so we can get as much information as we can in as quick a time frame as we can so we can get assistance out there to you. And one of the things that I was hear all the time when I was up there, and I did it for 3 years, why y'all asking all these questions? Just get them out here. There's a reasoning for all the questions. We have to have as much information as we can. And when I was there, my main thing, I need to get as much information I can so the officers can have it, so they know what they're going into. We have situations where people will just give the address, hang up. They don't know what they're getting into when they go. It's an unknown. So if we get as much information as we can, especially if you've been assaulted or you've seen something, somebody's hurt, most important thing, where is that person located, or where are you located? If it's someone that's assaulted someone, they've left the scene, well, what do they look like? Just in case an officer's coming down the street, they see someone that matches or has that exact clothing description that you gave, they can stop, talk to that person, at least try to detain the person until we can figure out what is going on. Also, letting them know if you just need the police or if you need fire, you need an ambulance. Try to give them as much information on what it is that you need at the time that you call. Also, we have a lot of citizens in DeKalb County, a lot of citizens, a whole lot more than we have operators and dispatchers. Sometimes we also get the thing, well, I called and I was put on hold, so I hung up and called back. Don't hang up and call back, because like they say, on some recordings we call, if you hang up, you'll go back to the end of the queue. Same thing. Also, if what you're needing is not an emergency, we do have several non-emergency numbers, and there's some leaflets or pamphlets out there that has that information, and different agencies in the county based on what your need is. But if it's not an actual emergency, we just kindly ask, don't tie up the emergency line. You can actually call the non-emergency line, and someone there can assist you at that time as well. So just know what the difference is between actual emergency, non-emergency, what it is that you need, and have as much information as you can when you call initially. So once we get from the 911 phase, then we go to the police. Police are dispatched, they come out to the location. Sometimes there are tempers that are hot, depending on what the situation is. We try to calm everyone down as much as possible, but please, when we get on scene, just try to calm down enough to where we can figure out what is going on. Sometimes we go to the scenes, we have two parties in an argument, and they're arguing, and we're trying to separate them, trying to calm them down. Everybody's yelling over each other. We can't get the information that we need to kind of figure out what's going on to assist with the situation. So just try to calm down while we're there. Make sure you have as many details as you can. If you're making a report in reference to, let's say, either your vehicle was broken into or your house was broken into or somebody, when did it happen? Do you know who did it? If you know who did it, whatever information you can provide about that person, even if it's just a nickname, you don't know their whole name. You know where they live, or you know somebody that knows them, or you just have a phone number. Any detail that you can give or any bit of information that you can give is very important, no matter how minute. We can take a little bit and we can get a lot. So don't think just because you don't have a lot that we don't need it or you don't need to give it to us. Make sure the information that you're giving is truthful. We're neutral parties. We don't take sides when we go on scene. A lot of times we go to maybe a domestic between a male and female, and I get out there and I'm a female. The male says, oh, I already know you're going to take her side. No, I'm a neutral party. I listen to both sides, determine what the issue is and what the solution is that we can do at that time. If there's somebody that you know that actually saw or heard what happened, give us their information. If they're there when it occurred, see if they can stay until we get there so we can talk to them as well. If they can't stay, see if you can get their information and we can follow up on it at a later time. A lot of times we get on scene and there are 2, 3, 4 people. If we say, someone points out someone and says, oh, okay, this is the person that did it, and someone else said, yes, they did it, we might detain somebody. Just because we detain somebody does not mean you're under arrest. And we'll say you're just being detained. We are just conducting our investigation. And once the investigation is done, then we'll gladly let you know what the outcome is, what's going on, what's going to happen next. If you have any questions at that time, feel free to ask the questions. And as Sergeant Walker said, please follow instructions. Whatever commands the officer is giving you at that time. It's not just because we're out there just trying to tell you what to do. We're trying to make the scene safe, not only for us, but for you all as well. Once the officer conducts their investigation, if it's not something that we can handle on scene and it needs further investigation, that's when the CID is contacted, which is the Criminal Investigation Division. Based on what the incident was that occurred, then that determines what unit is called. I came from Special Victims, Domestic Violence, Internet Crimes. So if it's anything involving domestic child abuse, elder abuse, any type of domestic violence, and a lot of people think domestic violence is just between husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend, or it does not always have to be relatives. If you live in a house where rooms are rented to other people, everybody that lives in that house, if anything occurs with anybody in that house, that falls under domestic violence. So that's something that we take into account and we look at. So we'll ask questions such as, do they live here? How long have they lived here? How long have you known them? Or what is your relationship? So just because it may be your brother or sister, that doesn't necessarily mean that you live together. That could not be a domestic situation because you might have 2 different parents. One of the parents might be different. So that might not be domestic. So depending on the situation, then we can determine whether it's something that we can handle or if it's something that you might be able to further on your own. Once we determine that a detective is needed, we'll contact them, and based on the incident and the information that we give them, that determines whether it's something that they need to respond to the scene. Detective does not always need to respond to the scene at the time of the incident. What will happen is the officer will write up the report. They'll give you a case number, let you know where you can pick it up, how long it's going to take to be ready, and then the information is forwarded up to the detective division, and they will actually assign it to a detective who will then follow up with you. So it's very important for you to give a good contact number, whether it's a cell phone number, a home phone number. If you don't have a phone at that time, your mom's number, somebody that you know that can get in contact with you for the follow-up. Also, another important thing is the cooperation. We're here to assist you. A lot of times you call us, so it's our job to come help you. we need your cooperation to be able to assist you in the best way that we can. Yes. Okay, does anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a way of tracking the numbers that call you?
Everybody that calls into 911, it goes into the system. So anytime you make a call, even if it's a hang up, the number pops up and it also goes on the map. So we have a general area from where the number came from.
I ask that question. If I am in a situation, if I am in a situation that the only thing that I can say is 911 and the attacker is right there, I cannot say anything else. And here you are on the phone asking me questions and I cannot answer. How would you determine not to talk loud for the voice, not to come on the phone, or how would you come out to help me if you don't know my location and I cannot tell you where I am?
Okay. The only way an address actually pops up on the call is if it's an actual home landline. And as we all know, a lot of times people don't have landlines, they have cell phones. Cell phones typically pop up on a tower. Now, there are different ways that they can go about trying to find out where it's coming from. They'll look up a history on the number to see if there's an address that the number called from before, and they can send someone to that address to confirm. Or even if you say 911, if you can just call out the address real quick, or at least say a street or something, landmark something, and that'll kind of narrow it down, and then we can at least get units in the area to try to assist or try to locate you.
But would you, for instance, I call and the person, my attacker is, near me, I cannot say anything else. But the caller say, hey, are you there? Are you there? And they can hear that for the phone while I'm trying not to say anything. Would somebody at this location get a hint that I'm not able to talk? Would they follow up on a call like that, or?
You can leave the line open. Because if they hear that it's an open line and they hear a struggle or they hear something in the background, they're not just going to hang up. They're going to try to get as much information that they can. And if it sounds like there's something definitely wrong, there are other ways that they can try to find out the location as well, such as contacting a cell phone company to see if we can get an address for the registered owner for that phone. So there are ways that we can narrow it down and try to get help out. Any other questions? You got a question? Oh, okay. Let me just say this real quick. As far as assistance, DeKalb County has many resources that can assist. So if you are in a situation that you feel like you need to get out of, whether it's domestic or whatnot, there are resources. Just ask for help. And unbeknownst to some people, a lot of people believe that domestic violence only occurs men against women. Everybody, it doesn't matter race, sex, age, nationality, or culture, anybody can be a victim of domestic violence. So that's the one thing we ask. We're here to help. If you need help, ask for it.
This will be real quick, but I just want to ask some people a question. How many people out here driving a car? I'm going to pick one person. Who's driving a car? You driving a car? Driving a car? What's your tag number? Does anybody know their tag number right offhand? The reason I ask that, help us to help you. We get a lot of people who call in, hey, my car just got stolen. What's your tag number? Oh, I don't know. It'll save us time if you do know your tag number, okay? Number two, on the burglary, how many people have their serial numbers written down or on file somewhere for your TVs, things like that, right? I do. At my home, I take pictures of my televisions, big things that I own, and I also record serial numbers. If someone breaks in your place, it's good to have serial numbers, okay? These are little things that'll help you all, okay? Number three, a lot of people think things will never happen to them. I work at 2 different shopping plazas, and this is what I see a lot of, and you hear about it on the news. You park in the fire lane, you get out of the car, and you run in to go get some food. Car doors unlocked, somebody jumps in your car and steals it because you were only in there for a minute. How long does it take someone, a criminal, to get into your car and drive off? Right? And we've had criminals steal people's car with kids in them. And guess what? When that car is taken and we've got a toddler or infant in that car, guess what? Usually no one's going home until that child is found. Been on those scenes. Take your kids aside, park in a parking space, lock your cars, don't leave valuables in plain view. Okay? And if you live in an apartment, please get some renter's insurance. Because if your place does get broken into, yeah, you're going to be upset, but you're going to feel a little bit about it because you have your serial numbers, and guess what? You have coverage. Nothing like some good coverage, right? So if you don't know your tag numbers, guess what? A lot of like my cell phone, I can text a text message to myself. Text your tag number there. Take a picture of your tag. Keep these things on file because a majority of people that I run into, when they ask, hey, what's your tag number? I don't know. But it's a black Honda Accord. How many black Honda Accords out there, right? Okay. Just a little something quick, and I'm going to turn it over.
Thank you, Sergeant Parker. It's small things like that. It's the little things that add up to the big things. And like Sergeant Parker was saying, those little things help law enforcement do their job, help you all feel better about the people in your community who are called to serve. The job that law enforcement does is not easy. Sergeant Parker and the 5th team, they do tremendous work. They do a lot of work. They're kind of like the women of a lot of families. They do a lot of the work behind the scenes that nobody sees, but a lot of that work, you see the food that we have, everybody belly full. Everybody got some nice rice and peas, some jerk chicken. All right, yes, with Miss Julia and this young lady right here, a lot of that work was done way before we got here. You can't just show up and throw seasoning on chicken and then serve it to people. It must be done night before, preparation, things like that. I'm Guyanese, so I know y'all looking at me like, what? What's wrong with this bike? But yes, a lot of that work is done behind the scenes, and that's what Sergeant Parker, Major Medlin, Captain Pop, Lieutenant Stanfield, and other officers like that. So when they're asking you for things like that, to be aware, to give, little things like your tag number, remember things like that, it helps them do their job a lot better, and then you all will feel a lot better about the people in your community, like I said, who are called to serve. Because much like Pastor Honoree was called to serve, you see you have a great leader. A lot of these men were called to serve, and they are great leaders in this community. So with that being said, my name is Jawar Mars. I work in the DeKalb County District Attorney's Office. I'm going to speak to you a little bit about what the District Attorney's Office does, who your District Attorney is. Can't cover everything. This is just a criminal justice 101. All of y'all look like very bright individuals. You've been to school. 101 is just the basics. It's just an introduction, but we are open. We are transparent. And we would love to come back to other forums that you all have to speak about some more things like the domestic terrorism, answer more of your questions in depth about things going on in your local community and in the national community at large. But I'm just going to go through real quick, tell you a little bit about Ms. Sherry Boston. She was elected in 2017. She is your DeKalb County District Attorney. I am an assistant district attorney, so Ms. Boston is elected. She has to run. I don't have to run. She then hires other attorneys to actually handle the cases in DeKalb County. And your district attorney, we represent the rights and interests of victims of felony crimes in DeKalb County. So a felony crime is something that, a crime that is punishable by more than a year in prison. And prison and jail are two different things. Jail, the DeKalb County Hotel, is located on Memorial Drive. That is local. So if you do a misdemeanor crime, that's like your DUIs, misdemeanor batteries, shoplifting, things like that, then you're housed in the local jail. If you commit a felony, you're found guilty, you come to court, somebody like myself has to stand up in front of a jury and say this is the evidence, and you found guilty, then you go down the road to prison. Prison and jail are two different things. Sometimes people use those terms interchangeably, but they are different. So if you are a victim of a felony crime, felony is something like a robbery, an aggravated assault, somebody points a gun at you, somebody hits you with a pipe or something like that, that would be called an aggravated assault. Somebody takes your property on the street, runs away with it. If it's over a certain amount, that's considered a robbery. So crimes like that are prosecuted in the district attorney's office. The solicitor general's office, Ms. Donna Coleman Stribling is your elected solicitor. They handle all the misdemeanor crimes. Like I said, the DUI, a lot of your traffic stops and things like that. As you can see on the screen, it's over 200 members of the DA's staff, 10 different divisions. We also handle the child support enforcement. Essentially, the district attorney looks out for the vulnerable population in your local county. We represent, like I said, the rights and interests of victims, and the victims, as you can see in our specialized units, they cover a wide cross-section of crimes. So we have our elder abuse and exploitation unit, we have a high-intensity drug trafficking area unit, the child support recovery. I'm a part of the crime strategies and community partnerships unit. That is something that is a little bit more new, more cutting edge. I say all that, it's a fancy way of saying basically is, you know how if you go get something to eat at Chick-fil-A, you know, and they ask you to sign up for the rewards and all that kind of stuff. Well, we live in a data-driven society. Everybody wants to collect all of your data from wherever they can so that they can be more responsive. Because if we know that you like to eat spicy chicken sandwiches, well, then we're going to send you a coupon for a spicy chicken sandwich. Then that in turn is going to make you feel like, well, you know what, Chick-fil-A really cares about me. They send me a coupon, you know, they know my favorite stuff. And then in turn, you will want to go back and patronize them. And so it's the same kind of thing with the DA's office and the Crime Strategies and Community Partnerships Unit. We're trying to collect as much data as possible. That's why we're working with the precinct commanders, Lieutenant Stanfield, Captain Pop, when a major case that we feel like you all would want tracked. When the data tells us that about 10% of the criminals commit about 80% of the major crimes. And so what we try to do is find those crime drivers. That's what we have termed it in the Community Partnerships and Crime Strategies Unit. We try to find those crime drivers and weed them out and then reseed them with people who may have done minor infractions. You know, we all are struggling or seeking perfection, striving for greatness and excellence, and sometimes you mess up. You know, you might get a DUI when you're 19 or 20 or underage drinking or something like that. And we don't want to throw people like that away. We want to save people like that, because people like that become productive members of society if they're given a second chance. Sometimes you need a third chance, you know, but as long as it's in a way that as a community we agree that these are the individuals that deserve a second chance, deserve the right to earn a second chance. It's not that we're giving it to them, but they deserve a chance to earn another opportunity to continue to be a productive member of society. And then there are other people who don't deserve that. Your major drug sellers, people who are recruiting teenagers, 10, 11, 12-year-olds into gangs, people who are committing human trafficking and things like that. Those people don't deserve to remain in the community. They deserve to go to prison, to be separated from society, and hopefully they can be rehabilitated while in the Department of Corrections. All right, but so that is some of the units in the DeKalb DA's office. As I said, the types of crime, the misdemeanor is punishable by 12 months in jail or a $1,000 fine. That's prosecuted by your Solicitor General, Ms. Donna Coleman Stribling. Felony is punishable by up to life imprisonment or the death penalty, and that's prosecuted in the District Attorney's office, and that's handled in Superior Court. State court is where you go for the misdemeanors. So again, these are different types of cases that are handled in the DA's office: abuses in later life or elder exploitation, animal cruelty, burglaries, domestic violence, drug trafficking, and Solicitor Coleman was speaking at a Citizens DA Academy the other day, and she said she was asked a question about what crime that the public at large can help her with. And she said domestic violence. And she said domestic violence is kind of under a broader umbrella of conflict resolution. I think we can all agree as a society that we need to do better with conflict resolution. You know, you hear stories about people getting cut off in traffic and then they chasing somebody home and shooting them and doing all kind of craziness. But conflict resolution starts with healthy communication. And healthy communication starts with maturity. You know, and a lot of us have growing to do, myself included. Growth is a continual process that we all must go through. That's life. It's one big process of growth. But that's something that you all can help with at large. Conflict resolution, domestic violence. There is a lot of misdemeanor domestic violence and felony domestic violence. As Sergeant Tyner was saying, she worked in the Special Victims Unit. She could speak more to that, but it is very prevalent. It is kind of an underlying issue. It's not necessarily on the forefront. We think more about police brutality and shootings like that and white-collar corruption, things like that, but domestic violence kind of tears away at the fabric of society, which is the family unit. And when mom and dad can't get together, then the children can't grow up in a healthy environment. They don't know how to communicate. They go to school. They communicate badly with their peers, with their teachers, and so on and so forth, and then we all suffer. So that's just something to keep in mind, but that's the types of cases that we work on, the types of hearings that you see here, an arraignment, a bond hearing, first appearance, jail. These are just different types of hearings that happen in Superior Court. As I said, this is just a 101. We can definitely come back out and explain everything that happens at those different hearings. But the most important thing that I'm here to talk to you about is that Ms. Sherry Boston, her motto, I guess you can say the foundation for what her administration is built on, its phrase is engage, protect, and restore. And we want to engage our community at large, engage our law enforcement partners, engage our clergy partners, establish and foster healthy communication, protect. We must protect victims of crime from ongoing crime and from the crime that they have already experienced by bringing justice to them through the criminal justice system, and then restore. And like I said, the spirit of what Teron was saying today, building bridges, reestablishing bridges, we have to restore that faith and that trust with the community at large, and it starts with and continues with doing events like this. We appreciate you all opening up your church home. Thank you for opening up your hearts and your minds to listen to us, to receive the information that we brought to you all today. We hope that you would remain open to the information that we all have. I'm a son of DeKalb. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, but then I came down here and I grew up down here. I grew up in Stone Mountain. I went to Panola Way Elementary. I went to Margaret Theme School. They had the M2M program. My mom is an academic, so then she sent us out to Peachtree Middle School, and eventually I graduated from Dunwoody High School. I went to Furman University, then I went to FAMU Law School, and I came back. I was serving Fulton County District Attorney's Office, but then I actually came back home to DeKalb because I care about DeKalb, much like these gentlemen right here care about DeKalb, and you all care about DeKalb, because you wouldn't be here on your off time listening to what we have to say. So we just ask that you continue to spread that message of caring, bring more people with you, let them know that you do have a criminal justice system that is responsive to your needs, to your wants, your concerns, your desires, your gripes, everything, just to your needs as a human being. And because we do need to instill the trust back in the justice system, and it starts with reestablishing bridges that were already there and building new bridges to places that haven't had that healthy communication with your law enforcement system. So I think my time is up. Like I said, felony case starts with an incident. A warrant is then issued after these gentlemen gather evidence. They take it to a magistrate judge. A magistrate judge is different than a Superior Court judge. They simply hear information like that, cases like that. And the standard is very low to get a warrant, and it's because just getting a warrant and somebody getting arrested is not the end of the process. That only starts the process. And if somebody is innocent, then the evidence will play out through that. Like you said, you have officers with high integrity, high morals, high character. The way that they do their job ensures that we all have due process. Sometimes that's slow, sometimes that's quick. Sometimes a situation may look one way, and then it comes to a person like me, and I would have to say, hey, Sergeant Parker, I know it looked one way, but the evidence bore out that we can't go forward on these charges. And you say, hey, man, you do your job, Mars, I did my job. And that's how we work hand in hand. And sometimes when people are guilty, sometimes people in our own community who are guilty, you must be held accountable. I tell young men all the time, if you hit my mom upside the head and take her cell phone, you rob her, I'm going to come looking for you. Because I believe in law and order. I think we all believe in law and order. I think that's some misinformation that's been put out there to the public at large, is that the black community does not care about law and order. We very much care about law and order, because I see all of you with children in here. I see a sleeping baby over there. I know you care about your daughter. I have a 2-year-old daughter. I care about her. I care about her having the same peace and quiet enjoyment of her neighborhood that Sergeant Parker shares, that Adams shares, Major Medlin, that we all share, that everybody wants. Human beings want safety and security. I don't think that's something that is, I'm going to open the floor to questions in a second. I don't think that's something that is particular to any race. So the incidents start that way. Like I said, sometimes people in our own community, they commit crimes and they must be held accountable. So an arrest would then be made, first appearance, you appear, there's a preliminary hearing. From there, if the magistrate judge finds that there's enough evidence to bind it over, it goes over to Superior Court. You can then have a bond hearing or a bail hearing, and there's different factors that go into whether you can get bond or not, whether you have a history, whether you are a risk to the community at large or not, are some of the factors that go into that. And bond just determines whether you're held in custody until you get a trial or not. It's not your actual guilt or innocence. At a certain point, the case will go to a grand jury. A grand jury is about 6 to 23 different citizens. They come in, they have to sit all day and hear all the cases that come in. People like Sergeant Parker, Officer Adams, Kriego, they come down to a grand jury. A person like myself will get up in a room similar to this, and they will go over the facts and evidence that they have, and the grand jury will make a decision. If the grand jury decides that there's enough evidence, something that's called a true bill is issued. If the grand jury decides that there's not enough evidence, then no bill is issued, and the case doesn't go forward. It's dropped from there. But if you do come to court, you're arraigned. That's the formal notification of your charges. Defendant can either plead guilty or not guilty. Most of the times, defendant plead guilty, even if they are guilty, because a part of due process is the state has to prove its case. And that starts with a process called discovery. And discovery is where we have to turn over all of the evidence. And a lot of times, once we turn over all of the evidence, then a defense attorney will communicate to their client, hey, listen, they got you caught dead to rights. There's nothing I can do. That's when 97% of cases are handled by plea. Only 3% of cases actually go to trial. So what you see is a lot of negotiation between people like myself and defense attorneys. So Ms. Mann is telling me that my time is up. We're going to open the floor for some questions and answers. Please feel free to come up to the mics. I'll answer whatever questions you have in the time we have left.
In the DA's office, what type of...
That was Pastor Honorary. That wasn't me.
What type of crime do you see on the rise in the DA's office?
Unfortunately, we've seen an uptick of crime in young females. Robberies, armed robberies, a lot of like identity theft, financial transaction card fraud, things like that. And a lot of times they're normally running with gangs. They're running with boyfriends who are in gangs and things like that, and they kind of just take over.
there. Hang on.
Okay. These are more of two general questions I have because it kind of plagues my mind. Now, what, and this is to our Caucasian officers, what in it you see that scares you when you approach a black person? If you're doing an arrest, you know, what is it you're scared of us? What is scary about us? Huh?
Let me try to answer, speak to what you're saying a little bit.
I'm not scared of anyone, okay? I've been shot at 9 bullets have been intended to kill me. I have not shot back once, okay?
I'm sorry, I appreciate that.
I appreciate that. Behavior is a big thing for us.
I have witnessed, not witnessed, I've seen many times on television, and I'm not the person that likes to look at television because it is so depressing. But I have 5 sons. The last one, he's 17 years old. He's a new driver. And I take my child to my country, which is Guyana, every year. He was born here. And he asked me at 15 years old, he said, why is it you don't send me by myself 5 minutes to the dollar store, and when I go to Guyana, you allow me to get up and go anywhere I want to go? You know, he has cousins and all of that. I mean, I said, Jay, I don't even think about that. But that's not the answer. I now have to worry with myself, you know, why is it if he's in band and in the summer he wants to go run? I live in a decent neighborhood, but I am outside. If I can't be awake, he can't be out there.
Right.
He cannot be out there. If I see him go down the hill, look, I'm hurrying to go down to make sure nobody's down there. Another thing too, if you approach, we're parents, I'm a parent, and one of my duties as a parent is to protect my child. Now, here I am, I come upon a situation, I may not know what it is, but there is it, I see my child being, it's never happened, but I'm telling you about what I've seen. I've seen my child, a police officer, who is whirling, just throwing him or her down on, and it seems as though it's deliberate that they always try to throw them on the side of the park, the concrete. And I cannot do anything because my mother instinct is to, please don't do her that, don't do her that. But I can't touch you because that was an assault. No, you have thrown my child like that. When everything is over, you've been exonerated, it's all right. My child comes back to me. How do they look at me? My mom didn't even intervene to save me. No, I am locked in a closet, I'm crying, my child is troubled for the rest because I cannot save her. I cannot save him because I cannot save myself. What do I do? What do I do?
Okay.
I'm a nurse. I take care
Okay.
of everybody. I don't care what you look like. I approach you the same way. I have manners and all of that. But at the same time, I worry every day about my children.
Okay, and let me address some things, ma'am. I've been doing this for a while, over 23 years. Okay. My guys are really basically handpicked. I pick guys, I like officers who are going to be aggressive when it comes to doing their jobs. Okay? I like officers who are motivated. I don't like lazy officers. Let me give you an example of, because like Sergeant Walker was saying earlier, you hear about all the bad things, you hear about officer-involved shootings, but you don't hear about suspects we don't shoot who have guns and are actively going after guns. And I'm going to give you an example that happened this year. We're at the Stone Mountain Inn. I actually initiated a traffic stop at the Stone Mountain Inn. Young lady backed into a parking space. I got out of my Chevy Tahoe. As soon as I cleared the front bumper, the front seat passengers, a black male, started reaching toward the floorboard. I stopped. I said, let me see your hands. He put his hands on the dashboard in front of him, okay? As soon as I started walking again, his hands went back down. At that point, my firearm came out. Why? Because at that point, I didn't feel safe, and I felt this guy was about to do something to me. So I had Officers Adams, Kriego, okay? I had these guys with me. When I got up to the passenger window, I noticed that there was an infant in the back seat and there was a toddler on the other side on the back seat. All right? Officer Kriego said, Sarge, he's got a gun. He's reaching for it. He's pulling it out of his pocket. Okay? I said, we got 2 kids in the back seat. I pointed my gun at a downward angle. I yelled for Officer Adam, get that female driver to unlock the door. Okay? Unlock the door. I was able to open that door. I used my forearm, I pushed his arm back, I grabbed that gun, I put it on top of the car, and we took him into custody. Now, this front seat passenger, the gun was stolen. He was a convicted felon. He had a warrant out for his arrest, state board and pardons, all right, and parole. All right? And when he told me his name, I said, I've dealt with you before. This guy, I felt if I was by myself, I would have been in a shootout. The thing is education. I have a son that'll be 27 years old next month, and they care about my son's welfare as well. I educate my family. If I get pulled over, I guarantee you, when that officer is coming up, I'm not reaching for anything, not my driver's license. My hand's on that steering wheel. When that officer, I do everything I can to make an officer feel safe. Matter of fact, long before I became an officer, I used to get out of a lot of tickets. You want to know how I used to get out of them? I was simply cordial. And I told that officer some things that a lot of officers are not used to hearing. Officer would come up, sir, you know why I pulled you over? And it was usually speeding. Officer, you probably pulled me over because I was going over the speed limit. And I said, I'm not mad if you write me a citation because you're simply doing your job. You want to go home to your family, and I want to go home to my family. If you want to search my car, feel free, sir. I'm not here to give you any problems. That officer was like, well, I'm not used to hearing that. Went back and ran my license. My license is good. I confused him. Hey, sir, slow it down. Have a good day. Thank you, officer. And I drive off. Now, let me tell you what we run into a lot out here on the road. You pull somebody over. You walk up to the car. You can't even get up to the driver's door good. What'd I do? What did you pull me over for? Let me ask you a question. Do you actually have to do anything? And I want you to listen to the question. Does it mean you actually did something to get pulled over by the police? Could your brake light be out? Tag light? Expired tag, suspended registration, no insurance? So when people ask me that question, oh, you didn't do anything. Maybe it's what you didn't do. But I want everybody to know this. I'm here talking to you all today. You all are not my problem out on the road. Because you're here. You're not my problem. My problem with the guys who are out here shooting at people, carjacking people, okay, wreaking havoc in the neighborhoods. You know, when I first got this job, you had to write something down on why you wanted to be a police officer. And you get the usual answers. Hey, I want to serve my community. I want to protect and serve. You know, I like helping people. And that's great. That's true. Me, I like getting a bad guy. I'll be 52 years old Thursday, okay? I'll still run and chase you. I don't catch everybody like I used to.
He like doing that.
Okay? But he can tell you, because I see him at my precinct all the time, that I like getting a bad guy. And if I don't get the bad guy, I'm furious. I'm like, oh, I can't believe I let that guy get away. Oh! But when I get him, I'm all smiles. So if you get pulled over by the police, it's only one thing to ask. Just be cordial. Because if I pull you over, running a red light or speeding or doing whatever, you're cordial, walk up, how you doing? We ask for the license first. And let me tell you why we don't initially explain why we pull you over until we get your license. Because as soon as if you ask me, hey, why did you pull me over? Well, you ran the light. No, I didn't run the red light there. Now we have in court on the side of the road. I get your identification first, your license, and then I explain why I pull you over. If I pull you over, sir, you ran a red light, I'm more likely going to give you a warning. You're not who I want. But a no seat belt, a red light, speeding leads to other things. Leads to outstanding warrants. Okay? What did we do yesterday? 15? We handled a complaint at a cemetery where a homeless was living at. This male had a warrant out for his arrest out of Kentucky. Felony warrant, burglary, 3rd degree, criminal mischief. They were like, we will extradite lower 48 states. Awesome. That's who I want. These are some of the people wreaking havoc in the neighborhood. And don't get me wrong. There may be people out there who make mistakes. They may commit crime. They may make mistakes. But they're able to be rehabilitated. Coffee with a cop a few days ago, Major, right? Young gentleman approached me. He said, you may not remember, you locked me up on August 31st, 2017 for drugs in that shopping plaza you work at South Harris Redan where the Kroger is. He said, you changed my life. He said, I went back to school. I got educated and I'm now working. That made me feel good. So don't worry, ma'am. I understand your concern. But the main thing is educating your kids, educating your family. Get pulled over. Don't think the world is over. It's not over. It's a traffic stop. Don't get me wrong. I understand those blue lights come on and everybody gets nervous and I don't know what to do. Hands on steering wheel. Once that officer approaches, then get your license. I've had people say, hey, officer, I have a weapon in the car. That has never scared me. If you tell me you have a weapon in the car, that doesn't bother me at all. But if I ask somebody, hey, you have any weapons in the car? We're going to have a problem now. Because they usually do, and they're usually a convicted felon not even supposed to have a gun. So trust me when I tell you that if we come out there and we're dealing with you, just be cordial. We'll be cordial with you. If you have an issue with an officer and you think things are going bad in the officer, now I always said this, if you think an officer is purposely violating your rights, then let him. Your main concern is getting home safely. Because if I get pulled over and I know an officer, not making a mistake, but purposely violating my rights, go right ahead. If you put me in handcuffs and take me to jail, okay, I'm going to call my sister, hey, can you bond me out? Put you in jail? Yeah, but he violated my rights, he did this. That's fine. I'm fine the highest price attorney I can.
Take care of it in the right venue, in the court system.
Okay, and I know I'm past my time, Pastor, but I like to talk.
I'm just going to add on to...
I think both of us, so I'm going to shut up too. Thank y'all for your time.
Let me just add on to what Sergeant Parker is saying. Folks, I know most of you, you're very respectful people, very proper people. Just make sure you're modeling that for your children, especially the teenagers. Let them know the procedure when they get pulled over. Just stay respectful. Life will be okay. Once in a while, somebody with a uniform has a bad day. Let that be their problem. But encourage your children to focus on get home alive. Do exactly what Sergeant Parker said. I've gotten out of tickets just, for using a little bit of humor. No, I was not a pastor at the time, okay? Just the most important thing to teach your children, the most important thing to teach your children, be non-threatening. Just be non-threatening. Everybody wants to go home. Relax, breathe. Let's face it, you get pulled over, you're going to get nervous. If you need to tell the officer, I'm nervous, you're making me nervous, But just be non-threatening. Use church language. Do you understand what I'm saying? All right? Words you can't say in church, you probably should not be saying at a traffic stop, okay? Somebody had their hand up.
Lieutenant, thank you for sending the best looking officers down today.
Oh my goodness. What was in the sorrel?
I just have a, my, my question is, working in federal, I understand a little bit about what is considered, why people go to jail for federal crimes versus local crimes. Like, I know things across state lines. Like, what else, what differentiates the local jail prison from the federal crimes?
Our state and local laws. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we don't enforce federal law. We just enforce the state and local laws. So all this stuff you're seeing on TV with immigration and stuff like that, we don't enforce any of that. If that's up to our sheriff, if they cooperate with the federals on the immigration issues and stuff like that. The federal court system, they have U.S. attorneys and the federal judges, and they go completely through their own system. They don't even go through our system. The different crimes, a lot of them are the same crimes. They just call them something different and use different codes.
But like, I mean, like if you rob a bank, that's considered federal, right? But if I rob a bank in like DeKalb.
Right, well that's actually, that's one of those that can go both ways.
Okay.
Most of the time, we will handle all the bank robberies.
Okay.
Unless it's a violent gun and they're adults. The feds have certain criteria to take it before they'll prosecute it, whereas our criteria is a little bit lower. If you commit the crime, we're going to take it. The feds, they won't prosecute juveniles, and most of the times if they don't have a gun, they're not going to prosecute either.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Question, okay, got a bunch of questions.
As a traveler from county to county, sometimes I see officers from one county in another county. If they observe some activity, can they engage in another county?
We can. Most of the time, we won't unless it's a felony or something like that. If somebody's doing traffic infractions or something like that, our officers probably shouldn't be doing traffic stops outside our jurisdiction. But if I'm out, whether I'm on duty or off duty, if somebody's getting an armed robbery's going down in front of me or somebody's about to get harmed, I'm going to jump in and help. And I think that probably goes for most everybody. So.
All right, next question. I've got, okay, let's send that mic over. Oh, well, let's see. Who's up, who's up?
Go ahead, I'll yield to the lady.
Maria Williams.
With trafficking that's going on, what is some advice for parents who have teenage girls?
Who wants to talk to human trafficking? Okay, right here.
Monitor what your children are doing. These phones, the sites that they're getting on, who they're hanging out with, who they're talking to. Just be mindful, because a lot of times we give kids the electronics or let them go out and do whatever, and we're so busy doing what we have to do. We're working, we don't have time for the kids. Engage with their children, talk to your children. You stay informed about what's going on. Keep them informed about what's going on. My daughter just turned 18. I've been with the county for 10 years. I don't give her details, but I kind of give her a little bit, okay, well, this is what happened today, and this is what happened. So she kind of gets an idea of what's going on out there. So don't be scared to talk to your kids, especially with teenagers. They pick up a lot of stuff at school. Some parents don't parent like you parent. Your child goes to school, they pick up habits from other kids, or they learn, because there are other kids that are in school that are recruiting. So just keep your children informed and stay engaged in their life. Spend that time with them. So,
what are some, I don't know how to ask this. I personally don't know everything that's going on in that world as far as trafficking or what to warn my children of. I know a little bit from what I see on television, but I don't necessarily know like what's going on in this area, what really to talk to them about aside from the normal, don't let cars that get too close to you, be mindful of your surroundings, and outside of that, I'm not sure.
It's a lot of it's more subtle. Just so you know, it's not just one particular area, it happens everywhere. monitor who they're talking to on the social media. Facebook, Instagram, there's a whole lot of platforms that are out here now for as far as social media goes. Let them know everybody on Facebook and Instagram is not your friend. Don't talk to people that you don't know. There are older people that are pretending to be young teenagers, their age. They know the language. They know how to suck them in, and which goes right back along with stay engaged with your children. Show your children that you care, because if they feel like they're not getting it at home, they're going to go looking for somebody else, and somebody's talking in their ear, reeling them right on in, and then once they reel them in, I mean, that's when the problem starts.
Is there specific things to look out for the child to look out for? Like, if this person says this to you, then that's a red flag. Or if that person says that to you, is that a red flag?
If anybody is talking to you or asking you something that makes you uncomfortable, if they're asking them to send them pictures, or if they're sending them pictures, they want them to take videos and send them, things like that. And also know your child. If their behavior changes, don't say, oh, they're just going through a phase. Something may have happened, or somebody has made them uncomfortable or done something to make them feel that way. Know your child.
All right, thank you. Theoretically, we stopped at 5 o'clock. It's 5:17. Should we take these last few questions and wrap it up? Yeah, one there, one behind you. Oh, no, you were the one behind them. All right, go. We'll let the ladies go first, because you're such a gentleman.
Well, I want to know if there are mental health tests performed on officers before they're admitted guns. I want to know if that.
Guns on you, Major.
The short answer is yes, that as part of the hiring process, there'll be a written exam that they take, which is a mental evaluation. Then they'll also have to sit down and take interview with a psychologist. And after any type of serious incident, they also have to go back and be cleared by a psychiatrist before they can come back to work.
Thank you. Hey, Ron.
My turn now?
Ron.
Okay.
You get to ask a question.
Yes.
All right, time's up.
No, it's not. Okay, first of all, I want to express my appreciation for you all being here, and commend you for being here, because it shows you do care, and you're trying to bridge the gap. But and I know that the job is challenging because I did it for 18 years in service to the flag. Yes, 95 Bravo Military Police SRT certified. That being said, we can't bridge the gap without accountability. Proverbs chapter 6 talks about the 7 things that God hates that are even an abomination unto him. And the last one in verse 17 says, hands that shed innocent blood. This lady had a legitimate question, and she was laughed at, and I was really disappointed in that. Eric Garner's mother wouldn't find that question funny. Eric Garner, innocent blood. The young man in Freddie Gray, innocent blood. Michael Brown, innocent blood. Okay? Trayvon Martin, innocent blood. So my question to you, gentlemen, is what do you do, and it goes along with that last question that was asked, what do you do to screen to make sure, Captain, that you don't have officers joining your ranks for the sole purpose of killing innocent people, shedding innocent blood? The FBI did an undercover investigation back in 2004, and they determined back then that one of the greatest threats to the United States is white nationalists joining law enforcement in the legal profession. Law enforcement to kill and get away with it, the legal profession, district attorney and so forth, not to prosecute. Okay? What do you do, Captain, Major, Sergeant Parker, to make sure that these guys don't slip through the cracks and join the DeKalb Police Force?
Take this one.
I'm glad you asked that question because me, I've been doing this for 19 years. And like yourself, I served in the U.S. Marines and the military. This to me is not just a job opening. This to me is a calling. And this to me is a calling to make a difference. And I say that because I've been very blessed in my career to serve in different entities to ensure that very factor. to ensure that very factor does not exist in our police department. I have been a training instructor. I was a training instructor in our police academy for several years. So as a training instructor, I get them in the front door. And because of being a training instructor, I get to oversee their training for 26 weeks. I get to weed out those who do not fit the form of what we want here as DeKalb County police officers. Even though I have left our training division, I still have an impact in our training division because I go back and teach terrorism to our recruits. And I go back and teach other areas of responsibilities to them. Sergeant Parker and others, and some of these officers just like myself, I can tell you that when we see things like that, we decide to make sure that those no longer wear the badge of DeKalb County Police Department. We don't want them to exist. We don't want them to be part of our department. And the reason why I say that is because I like your question, because your question actually piggybacks on what we see happening in the media, right? The media takes the things, those very small facts that are happening in our profession, and they blow it up. But they don't take the facts that you see with Sergeant Parker's unit, that, believe it or not, his unit is made up of mostly whites, but he is the leader of a unit that is very successful at Tucker Precinct, where there is a white commander over the precinct, right? I'm pointing all this out because in DeKalb County, we have a very unique county. We have a county where you can literally go on one street and think that you're in another country simply because of the makeup and the signs that are clearly not in English. And to me, that is what makes our department so unique, is that even though we have whites, even though we have blacks, and we have Asians, and we have Hispanics, we all come together for the greater purpose at the end of the day, to be able to go out and do one specific task, and that's to ensure that all of you all, at the end of the day, are safe. So I say that because it's individuals like myself, and I'm not alone in this. It's individuals like myself who, at the end of the day, when we put this uniform on, we don't see black, we don't see white, we don't see Asian, we don't see that. We only see the DeKalb citizens who need our service to go out here to protect and serve on each and every day. And because of that, I'll be honest with you, because of that, I got the call 2 weeks ago. This gentleman right here used to be my commander in my unit. He called me 2 weeks ago and said, "Hey, Walker, could you please come and speak with us at an event?" Now, I'll be honest with you, sir, family comes first to me. I coach my daughter's travel softball team. We had practice today. I told them I'm cutting it short because I felt it was important for me to come here and speak to the citizens, not only because of that, but just like this gentleman here, I was born and raised in DeKalb County. I'm a product of DeKalb County. My parents still live over near Columbia High School, okay? So I take it is a mission to me to be able to put this on every single day and to ensure that we don't see color when we go out here and service you all. And I can clearly say within 19 years of working in this department, that is something that you see among the brother and sisterhood here among DeKalb County police officers. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you, Sergeant. Sir, I've been here 24 years. I can't remember anybody being fired for being white nationalists in the DeKalb County Police Department. We can't speak to other departments, what's happened in other departments. I can tell you we have a damn good department here. I love it, been here 24 years, don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. One thing we're not talking about, who knows how many, besides officers, how many murders we've had in DeKalb County this year since January 1? How many murders have we had this year since the beginning of the year, homicides in DeKalb County? 81.
More than full.
81. Sorry? 81. In DeKalb County's Tucker Precinct, we've had 24. We're already going double what we had last year. And let's be honest, a lot of that is black on black crime. We're seeing armed robberies, drugs, prostitution related, and some domestic. That's why we're saying if you have a domestic problem, please let us know. We have resources to help you. We're here to help. We've got some good officers working here, and a lot of them work for me, and I'm proud of them. Sure. I get it. No, I understand. And I did want to come back.
I'm a school teacher now. I work with at-risk kids for 19 years since they came out of those centers, so I know what you do.
Thank you, thank you. And back to your original question, ma'am. You said it was happening to your son?
She's scared that it would happen.
She's, that it might happen. Okay,
About their well-being, seeing what we see every day.
okay.
I mean, you can see within the law enforcement, there is a universal language that none of us out there really know.
And that's why we want you to come. We have Cop Talk, we have community events we put out. If you're on Facebook, please join our Facebook page for Tucker Police Department. We have Coffee with a Cop. We have these types of conversations one-on-one. It's not a speech. We sit down and talk to you. We just had one last week. They're great. We get good information, good intelligence.
Just real quick, Pastor Honoré, you all would agree is a great leader, right? A man who's called, right? Well, let me ask you a question. How many of you all could tell what his character was, what his integrity, what his moral compass? How many of you all could tell that the day he walked in? You just knew that. He wore it. He had a sign on him that said, you know what? I'm a man of integrity, character, humility. It's things you don't see, right? Okay, I say all that to say we can't always see that coming in. But what we ask is for people like Captain Pop, Major Medlin, to Sergeant Parker, to hold those people accountable internally, and then for you all to hold us accountable externally. And what you have to do is trust that people like this who would take their Saturday, Lieutenant Stanfield don't want to be here really. He got other things he want to do. You know, all of us have other things that we could be doing. But hindsight is 20/20, and that's why I asked about somebody like Pastor Honoré. You couldn't see that from the beginning. You had to see his actions over time. As these people don't come in going, I'm a white nationalist. It's right here. You know, their actions play out over time. And like Sergeant Walker was saying, then you hold those people accountable because he actually cares. You want to get good people like that to actually come. I didn't want to be a prosecutor. Let me tell you that. I did not. I did not see myself. I didn't see myself even being a lawyer. But sometimes God calls you to do things that are bigger than you. And you have to do that work from the inside. And we need, these officers don't like to be blindsided, you know. And sometimes I think it's a matter of perspective. Officers feel blindsided because what they're saying is, I'm out here doing the work. I'm not being like that. But then the public at large goes, well, all of you all are the same thing. All of you guys are the same. And that birds of a feather flock together kind of. And I know you're not saying that personally, but what happens is, like I said, the misinformation. The loudest voice comes in and goes, all of y'all doing da-da-da-da-da. And then enough of us don't speak up and go, wait a minute. There's actually great officers. I work with some of them. Let me introduce you to some of them. And there's some other people out here in the community that need to be removed that these officers need to have some contact with. There's not enough of that. And so that's what we're trying to do here is foster all of that and be sensitive to that. I have a Guyanese mother, got 5 kids as well, all the same concerns. And it's a matter of, I'll bring her next time. It's a matter of perspective. And so today we're getting each other's perspective. You're hearing the officer's perspective, and they're hearing your perspective. And in that, we'll keep growing.
We have
and
a
I'll shut up now.
question here.
Just a quick question. I am a little curious about your response time when you're called. And, you know, the stereotype that black communities, your response is longer. I did something on Friday. I can't tell you what, you may arrest me. I know I have the right to remain silent. I'm giving up that right. But I did something with my alarm at home. And I said, something was happening. And I said, I want to see if ADT is really watching my house. So I did something, and the cops were supposed to be called, and the response time was 30 minutes. So when the officer came, I said, and he came to the door, knocked casually, are you okay, ma'am? And I said, yes. And I said to him, if something had happened, I would be dead and buried by now, because it took 30 minutes to respond. So I just want to know the time frame, your response time frame, if that's within range.
Our average response time to priority 1 calls Priority 1 calls is things such as somebody getting shot at, armed robbery, something like that. It's right around 5 minutes. Okay, we're beating the national average. What you're calling about is a priority 2, unverified alarm. Did your alarm company call you when you set your alarm off?
No.
Okay, that's one problem. Okay.
What I did, they would not have called me.
I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to ask what you did. Another thing. Another thing. You just used up your free alarm. So next time they charge you. Okay. Priority 2 calls. We're averaging. I want to say. I'm forgetting now. What's the priority 2 time frame? 13. Around 13 minutes. Okay. That's something that can wait. It's not a life-threatening emergency. Now, if you had a panic alarm that said my life's in danger, would your alarm company call you? I don't know what you did, so I'm trying to get to it. So we have so many alarm calls in the county. We started I think it's called Cry Wolf or whatever it's called now, and now you get an alarm for false alarms. That's cut it back a lot, the false alarms. We're spending all our time going to false alarms. When other things are going on that need to be handled, we're handling false alarms. So yes, you will have alarm response according to what's going on. We have traffic, we have heavy call volumes at certain times. So if we knew more about the alarm, I could tell you what the response would be differently. And we would suggest not doing that, because what you did was you pulled an officer to your house when somebody else may really need that officer. So you create more issues. I understand what you're saying you try to do, but you create a whole other issue for us.
In case there are any other crimes that are taking place around here, just remember you do have the right to remain silent.
I want to say thank you to the police because I was at home, my alarm went off, the alarm company didn't call me, and it was just going. So I went into the closet, locked myself away, and I called 911. They told me to stay on the line. They would come and check my house out. So they came, they checked the house out, they walked all around, and they made sure everything was okay and it was safe. And they said maybe it was an open window or something. But I just want to say thanks because I felt safe after. I've also gotten speeding tickets, But what I want to say is that... there's a lot of mistrust out there in regards to officers and what's going on in the media. But at the end of the day, they're here to serve and protect us. And I felt protected. And many of us, the first thing we're going to do if something happens is to call the police. So just let us just be respectful, as Joel said, and try to work with the police to take care of us. Sometimes we're very angry when they pull us over and stuff like that, but it's for our good. Sometimes it's just a taillight. So I just want to say thank you for taking your Saturday off to be with us. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate the information that you have provided for us.
Thank you.
I also want to say thank you to all the officers here. You all clearly are very intent on doing good for the community. My question is, I don't know, sort of, I guess, an abstract one. I know we see a lot in the media about activities at large, what the police are doing, at least the police that they report on in the media. But what we don't hear or see or get a lot of information about is things that are being passed, I guess, in state and local government legislation that might affect the way that the police department or police or law enforcement are handling things, and may affect the way that you guys are trying to do your job. So I guess my question is, is there anything going on right now in that sort of sphere that we should, as citizens, be cognizant of and maybe get more information on, something to that effect? Like specifically any sort of legislation that maybe is up for
I can't think of anything right now, anything pressing.
Okay.
Not necessarily legislation, but when you go to the voting polls, think about the judges, the district attorney, the commissioners, anybody who's elected. Do they support the police to give us the resources that we need to get the job done? So think about that. Not telling you who to vote for, but do they support the police?
Is there any way that so the things that the police department would want, what they would want to see in a commissioner and judges, is there any way that we could find out, like, is that information that can be on the website? So I don't know how to necessarily.
It should be.
How do we know what we would best, what people would best represent you all and us in terms of electing judges?
Talk to them when they go to their meetings, when they're running for election. Talk to them, ask them the questions.
All right. Thank you.
Can I say one last thing real quick? I wanted to circle back around when you talked about, why are white officers afraid of black people and all this. This is something I have worked pretty much my entire career in black neighborhoods. And if you haven't noticed, I'm a white guy. So I've run into this, okay? And kind of what Sergeant Parker was touching on before was it's not what people look like, it's how they act that usually determines how we're going to act. So one thing I would caution you all on is do not make your children fear the police, okay?
Amen.
If I pull up and I'm talking to somebody, hey, how you doing? Let me talk to you for a second, what's going on? If they seem relaxed and, sure, officer, what can I do? What's going on? Then I'm probably going to be relaxed and I'm probably going to have a decent interaction with them. If I pull up, hey, what are you doing? What? You stopping me? What? Or they just take off and run. If you run, like Sergeant Parker, I'm going to chase you. Now, that may not end the way you want it to end, and at the end of the day, they may really not have done anything. But the thing is, they're so scared because they see either the police or the white police or whatever, because they've been told the whole life, the police are trying to shoot you, the police want to kill you, the police are, don't ever this. Don't do that. Please don't do that. I have had so many interactions over the years with young black men that immediately they become angry, immediately they become defensive, immediately they get scared. And after a little while, once they realize that I'm just there, either it's just a traffic thing or there's not really a bad reason, so to speak, that I'm there or that I'm talking to them, they calm down. And when you get to talk to them, well, I've always been told, the police do this and the police do that, and I'm a black guy, and if the police come after me, please do not teach them to fear us, okay?
All right, thank you. And with your little children, don't use the police as a threat. I'm going to call the police on you. No, that's just not a good idea. Hilbert, because you do so much, I'm giving you like 5 seconds, but it's not a real 5. It's more like 3.
Okay, I just want to say, back up, you were talking about being fearful of the police. Sometime last year, I was pulled over in Tucker because I was going through a school zone. And I went through the light. There was a sign above 35, school zone 35 miles an hour, and I'm going like 36, 37. And I was passing the school, and I was pulled over. So the officer came up, and with the radar gun on, said, good afternoon. You know what you did a short while ago? I said, no. Say, how fast were you going? I said 36 or 37 miles an hour. I wasn't paying much attention. But I said, I saw a sign over the light, 35 miles per hour. He said, but you exceed the speed limit. I said, how could I? You're not going to charge me for 2 miles over the speed limit. He said, no, it's 25 between 7 and 9. I didn't see that sign. So I said, where is that sign? He said, it's up the road, you pass it to the side of the road. I said, well, I'm sorry, officer. I was paying attention to this sign that was up under the light, so I was just following that. He said, okay, well, he said, just, okay, I'll give you a warning, but next time check. So the next day I drive on the same road, and I went on the same street, and I looked both sides. Yes, there was a sign to the side of the road, but it was like down here, and there was a vehicle parked where the sign was, so I did not see it. So, yeah, but because of the way I spoke with him, he said, okay, I just give you a warning and just pay attention next time. You know, so things happen, so we don't have to be scared of the police, you know, because they are there to protect us, not to hurt us, okay?
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Miss Mann. I'm the public education specialist for Tucker Precinct. I ask that you follow us on Nextdoor and on Facebook, as Major Metlin said. That is the DeKalb County Police Tucker Precinct. I am putting information out there all the time. Information about our meetings, information about laws that have passed or that have changed. So that is a way that you can keep up with that, as well as joining us for Coffee with a Cop, I had to think. That is second Wednesdays of the month. And then community engagement, there's one coming up next Wednesday, the 21st. It is on active shooter. If you have not participated in that presentation, I encourage you to come out and join us. On the 21st, it is at the Tucker Cofer Library, 5234 La Vista Road, 10:30 to 12:30. Oh, one last thing Sergeant kind of reminded me. In your programs today, you have a blue sheet. Those are just some basic law enforcement terms. Sometimes people are a little confused about those and how they pertain to any interaction with the law. So take a minute, go over those, refresh. Make sure that everything that you've gotten today, whether it's heard or written, that you are sharing with your family and friends. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Rhea just yelled it out and you got like 1 second. You're not even getting a mic. No, she's not getting a mic.
We can't do that, Pastor. We can't do that, Pastor.
Oh, come on.
I'm from the islands, and I know that our police officers have a shoot to disarm policy. Is there such a policy here?
You want me to answer that? Because I can answer it for them. But I'm going to let the major speak for himself.
No, ma'am. We shoot to stop the threat. Shoot to stop the threat is what we do. We don't shoot to disarm. What's the difference? Well, if I see you as a threat, as in like you're shooting at me or holding a gun towards me or charging me with a knife, that is a threat. I'm going to shoot until you quit coming at me with that either gun shooting at me or knife trying to stab me. So we shoot to stop the threat.
Can I just speak? I guess my reason for asking this as well is that if I'm holding a knife or a pen and it's probably the officer feels that his life is threatened, if you shoot to disarm, then you can figure out it's a pen. I may have a broken leg, but I'm alive and breathing. But you shoot to kill, I'm gone. And
we shoot to stop, not shoot to kill. We shoot to stop.
Well, sorry, wording it that way.
All right. Hey, you know what? There's always the meeting after the meeting. So some of these guys will be here for the meeting after the meeting. What I'm going to ask is Zedna to get her crew up here right now. I want all of our officers up here right now. All the officers, all the SWAT included, all the brass. Come on up here right now. Best if we just make one single line, and I will. Well, you want to do the picture first? All right, just stay there. All right. Well, let's come all the way across. We got room. We got room. All right. I guess 2 rows will work. All right, on behalf of Stone Mountain Seventh-day Adventist Church, we want to thank you for your time. We want to thank you for your service. We want to thank you for what you do for the community. And Zedna, would you kindly just hand all of these wonderful people tokens of our appreciation and all that stuff? Okay, take the picture before they get all the gifts. All right. Why is this thing so heavy, Zedna? Who didn't get theirs? Who didn't get theirs? You got one? Okay. Somebody doesn't have one. You got you? She got hers? No, we had... Lieutenant, you got yours? Are there 15 people up there? Maybe somebody left. Is somebody out there with the vehicles or something? All right. I got 2, 4, 5. Another 5. I got 15 people up here. Get up here. We're going to let you in on this one. All right. Go ahead and give them it. Again, we thank you. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to have closing prayer as soon as Hilbert gets his bag. We're going to have closing prayer. And then they're just going to stand there because they're so cool. And you can use them as good backdrops for your selfies, okay? Because I know everybody wants a picture with the cops, so in case you get pulled over, you can show them who your friends are. Let's have closing prayer. Everybody please stand for the closing prayer. Let us pray. Father, we thank you for this time we've had. We thank you for the dialogue. We thank you for the service of the people in uniform. We thank you for the protection that we afforded in this country, in this state, in this part of the state, in this part of the Atlanta area, because of these people and many others like them who are serving the purposes of morality, serving the purposes of justice, serving the purposes of protection. May you be with all of them and their other colleagues that are not here. May you provide them protection as you have done so many times, as we've heard, especially from Sergeant Parker today. Continue what you're doing in their lives and use them for your glory and for our protection in Jesus' name. Amen. Now you can come up here and pose with them.